If you've ever had to tend to a sick parent or child, you likely know how difficult managing care can be. Kevin Roche hopes to change that. As co-founder and CTO of Wellthy, he's making healthcare easier for families with technology. We talked to him about how he's transforming the healthcare industry and the way people take care of the ones they love. This is Profiles in Brilliance. Hi, I'm Kelly Wenzel, Chief Marketing Officer of Andela, and I'm here with Kevin Roach, co-founder and CTO of Wellthy. Kevin, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, great to be here.
For people in the audience who don't know tech, can you talk a little bit about your day job as co-founder and CTO?
Sure, really all things technology. This role has changed a lot over the years as the company evolves, but I oversee engineering, security, and IT, and really day-to-day focus on making sure everyone's rowing in the same direction, working towards our big goals, working with the other executives, vendors, occasionally investors and clients, and really making sure that we're making the right technical decisions. Ultimately, I sometimes still get in the weeds, but unfortunately I don't write code anymore, but choosing the right architectural decisions and so on.
Is that where your career started, as a coder?
Yeah. So I studied computer science and math in college and kind of fell into the finance industry out of school. It's an interesting time period. It was right before the financial crisis hit. I started a job at Goldman Sachs at the time, actually supporting the mortgages desk. And it was very interesting times to be thrown into the deep end. And, I enjoyed working there. I worked with a lot of smart people and learned a ton from the people I worked with. I was also living on Wall Street at the time and walking to work, going through Occupy Wall Street protests, and ultimately, spending a lot of time thinking about what it was I was working on, and started to question, there's a lot of interesting technical challenges to work on, but I found it more fulfilling if I could pursue solving technical challenges that were in service of a larger mission to benefit society. 2013, 2014, I finally decided I was going to try to take the leap and pursue other passions and try to maybe start a startup, and started networking a lot, trying to meet a potential co-founder. Around fall 2014 is when I met my co-founder of Wellthy. She had a very personal caregiving story, having cared for her mother for many years. Her mother had progressive MS. She saw the need for this type of role for project manager, this second job that caregivers often take on, and really helping people spend more quality time with their loved one and less time on the logistics of care. At the same time, my sister is a social worker, and we kind of saw this untapped resource in the country. A lot of social workers and women in general had left the workforce to care for their own families or caregiving for aging parents and so on. And we understood through technology we could offer them a chance to still use their skills to support families from the comfort of their home.
So you saw a chance to solve a hard technical problem, but one that had meaning.
Right, and acknowledging at the same time that it wasn't just a technology-only solution. It was marrying technology with the human component, someone who's going to really have empathy and understand and be there for the whole journey of the family.
You've had this interesting kind of dichotomy in your career then. You've had, time at a very big institution and now as a startup. How have those two experiences shaped your leadership style now?
Yeah, at some points I've wondered if I should have just gone straight into a startup, but the more I think about it, I think I learned a lot of valuable things working for a much larger company, went through some amazing training programs, saw how best practices operated at a large scale, and just learned from a lot of really smart people. I didn't want to just adopt all of that in a small company though, but I was able to pick and choose, and as the company has scaled, tap into a lot of what I learned there. Obviously, one of the bigger differences at a startup is the limited resources relative to a large organization. And so one of the skills I've had to really learn is how to make sure we're making the most of the resources we have at all times. And I, from a technical standpoint, tend to be a perfectionist. And I eventually had to redefine perfection for myself and for my teams as spending the perfect amount of time and resources on a particular effort. And that doesn't always mean the end result is perfect. It means that was what we should have spent on that particular problem and move on to bigger problems or other things.
Oh, I love that. It's a great thing, great way to do it. Just redefine what perfect means. So Sitting where you are now, if you could go back and give younger Kevin or any of the younger technologists watching this video some advice, what would you tell your younger self?
Probably two things. I guess the first would be don't be afraid to fail. And I'm not just talking about little things. Like, I think being willing to take big bets in your life. You don't know how far you can push yourself if you're not willing to actually fail. And it took me a long time to actually gather the courage to quit my comfortable job and take the leap. But I've never looked back. I'd say the other thing is to not be afraid to ask for help. Think, especially technologists, think that they should be able to figure out things themselves and maybe just figure it out with the power of the internet or whatever. But eventually I learned, especially in my role, it's important to find people that have actually been there and talk through the details of specific situations and really lean on your network or build the network if you don't have it. And it's okay to not have all the answers, and it's more important to be willing to ask the right questions.
I think that it's even more difficult once you're in a leadership position to recognize it's okay to be vulnerable and say, like, I don't know. So when you are interviewing people to come work for Wellthy, what is an interview question you always ask?
I'm going to give this away to all future candidates, but I think one that I think is always telling is I like to ask people what thing have they worked on that they're most proud of. And part of that answer tells me also what they take pride in. Some people only talk about the technical challenge of something they solved versus how fulfilling it was to solve a really important problem, more broadly than just the technical piece of it. Or other ways that people define something that they're proud of. And sometimes it's something in their life that's not even a work story or a technical story. And so it just tells me a lot about that person.
So Kevin, what have you worked on that you're most proud of?
I'd have to say Wellthy.
Yeah.
The thing that has always fueled us over all the years is the feedback we get from families. And even from the earliest, first year, the first people we helped, we got these incredible testimonials from people. And people have the opportunity to opt into sharing these with us. We don't even really request a lot of this, but it comes out of the blue to people, and they'll even publish things on Twitter, shouting out their CEO for offering this benefit and so on. But really all the ways that we've supported people, every time we see one of those reminds us what we're doing here.
And that it matters.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Makes all the hard days worth it.
So I would be remiss if I was sitting across from a CTO of a high growth startup and I did not ask you, how is AI impacting your business?
It's been obviously a very crazy year and a half, a lot of hype surrounding this. I try not to overstate where things are, but it is, I think, in most cases deserved of the hype. And it's impacting a lot of things. I mean, within engineering, learning how to use it to write code better and faster and so on. But from our own product offering perspective, I see a lot of opportunity for us to basically augment our care team, support them in doing their work better and faster. But we're not going to fast forward to automating the humans out of what we do, especially caregiving and these really important moments in families' lives where their most important aspects of their life are, being dealt with. We don't want to hand that over to AI, but there are opportunities where we can have AI as a co-pilot to our care team and do things like, which we've already done in our product. We can do things such as help them create better messages to the family and making sure that it's, for example, not using a lot of jargon and at the right, comprehension for someone who's not an expert caregiver. Or we can do things like analyze the sentiment of the messages coming in from the members and flag something that really needs urgent response and make sure it's getting the right level of attention or escalate if needed. So I see it as a way to really give superpowers to our care team and do things even better and faster than we were doing it before. But we're definitely taking kind of a crawl, walk, run approach, making sure we test in smart areas that are low risk, making things better than they were before, but not much downside, and just getting our feet wet to make sure we understand what the reality is behind the hype.
All right, Kevin, so now we're going to do a little lightning round. First one, wake up early or go to bed late?
I used to be a night owl. Unfortunately, after having a kid 2 years ago, I learned to be more of a morning person.
Or be able to deal with very little sleep generally, right?
Exactly.
Do you have a favorite hobby?
I mean, there's various sports. I love to play soccer, and I've run a bunch of marathons over the years, traveling as well. But again, that one has been on the back burner since having a kid and the pandemic and all that.
Favorite place you've ever been?
Really loved my time in Costa Rica.
What's something we can't Google about you?
I like to spend a lot of time thinking about productivity and how I spend my time. Bit of a sleep hacker. I've bought many products and spent a lot of time optimizing how I sleep to try to make the most of it and make sure it's high quality. I'm a lifelong learner. I read a lot of books. I'm obsessed with the productivity stuff like Atomic Habits. And
I'm reading that now. Again.
Nice. I like to eat the frog, start my day by tackling the hardest thing to make sure I at least make progress on that, making sure I focus on the difference between important and urgent.
What was the first job you ever got paid for?
I had a few jobs as a teenager. The one that stands out with me was working as a cashier at Kmart for many years. I feel like it gave me a great appreciation for people from all walks of life, learning in a customer-facing role to deal with all types of questions and people that may be upset around various reasons and so on.
And what's your favorite job?
Definitely my current job at Wellthy. It's always been a very fulfilling role for me.
Kevin, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to get to know you today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.